6:03. Why don't we go around and introduce ourselves, and then we'll get started with the meeting. My name is John Boutet. I chair the Southwest Common Council Education Committee, and I'm the one who's been harassing you with tons of emails for the last week. Okay, Eleanor.
Eleanor Coleman. I'm with the Catholic Charities Family and Community Services. They just changed their name. Youth Build program.
All righty, very good. Liliana.
Good evening, everyone. Liliana Ruiz with the City of Rochester. Nice to see everyone.
Likewise. Melody.
I am Melody Bishop. I'm the Community School Site Coordinator at School 19.
Great. And Kisha Smith. I don't know if she's muted right now, but
looks like she's frozen.
yeah,
Because she's driving.
could be.
There she go.
There she is.
Yes, Kisha.
Hey, Kisha.
Hi, I don't know, I hit something here.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm Kisha Smith from Swan Emergency Services.
Ah, great. Thank you for coming. And
No problem.
let's see. You've all moved around with the last introduction here. Josie McClary.
Hi, I'm Josie McClary. I am with the 19th Ward Association, VP.
Okay.
Hi, Goldie.
Hi.
And Phyllis Moss.
Phyllis Moss, Chair of the 19th Ward's Schools Committee.
Great.
Hi, everybody.
Nice to have you join us today. And Carmen Jones.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carmen Jones, and I am Community Center Manager for the Frederick Douglass Art Center and the Willie W. Lightfoot Art Center as well for the Recreation Department.
Great.
Hi, Carmen.
Thank you for joining us. Lee.
Hi there. I'm Lee Loomis. I'm with the Rochester Engineering Society, and we sponsor a tutoring team at Dr. Walter Cooper Academy.
Great. And Reverend Cunningham.
Hello, everyone. Reverend Marilyn Cunningham, the pastor of Grace Memorial CME Church on 372 Flint Street. Good to be here.
Great. Nice to have you with us. And I think that I haven't missed anybody, have I? Quadrant News. Well, there's been a lot of activity with the school board. Was anybody at the school board meeting last night? No? Yeah, I know they had a demonstration there from a few of the people. Moses! Glad you made it.
Thank you, sir.
Why don't you introduce yourself to the folks here?
Hello, everyone. How many people we got here? About 11 folk, I see.
Yeah.
My name is Moses Robinson. I am the Community Liaison Officer for the Rochester Police Department. And I'm honored to be here.
Great. Well, we're glad to have you join us.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I watched most of the board meeting last night, and it seemed to be pretty civil. I got through the whole thing, and well, except for the last 20 minutes or so. Mary Coffey.
Oh, yeah.
How you doing, Mary?
Good. Wait a minute. Let me just get good. Good, John. Thanks.
there's been a lot of discussion, of course, about the budget, which I listened to about 4 hours of. I managed not to chew off my foot while listening to it all. My God, those people deserve what they're making. They went through the whole budget, and apparently the way they're doing it now is an alternate way that the New York State Monitor wanted them to use, and there was a lot of questions by everybody there that it was difficult to follow the way the information is structured, but they got through it with a fair bit of patience, and I have to hand it to them. I thought they did a pretty good job of trying to get through all of this and understand what is there. Of course, the big issue is that getting all the people in the district that they need for working with the kids and taking care of some of the trauma issues that some of them have. I don't think that the budget as it stands has really addressed that with enough money, but I'm not quite sure. Certainly there's a lot of people amongst those who are heading up groups like Citizen Action and the Rochester Coalition for Public Education, who are looking at trying to get more money into the budget, but we'll see where they come up with more money from. The big question they're trying to get through right now is to balance the budget based on what is in there. Does anybody else have some news worth mentioning? That seems to have been most of the activity that I heard about. Kisha, did you have something you wanted to mention? Oh, you're muted right now.
No, I don't have anything at this time.
Okay. So hey, Shaniqua, how you doing? We had a nice visit at Swan. Eleanor and I went over to visit Swan over at the what's the center there?
Oh, Montgomery Neighborhood Center, 10 Katy Street.
Center. And for those of you who aren't familiar with Swan, they used to be over at the Wilson Foundation Academy. There was a Swan Center there that had been built into it, but there were a number of things that happened with Swan that they closed that center and moved people they had left over into the Montgomery Center, and it is really coming back to life. I was very impressed with what I saw there, and I certainly hope that we will see great things from Swan, because they were a founding organization for the Southwest Common Council. Willie Lightfoot Sr. really, put Swan together in the first place. And Eleanor was there, at least at the beginning of the Southwest Common Council. And so it's a group that, in fact, we had a lot of our meetings there for the first 2 or 3 years that I was involved with the Southwest Common Council. So we look forward to seeing great things at its new location, and keep us informed. And if there are any problems with any of the schools in that area, you know, some schools I've been closely involved with. What was school number 3 before, which is now junior high, and school 19, 16, 10, 29, and the Wilson Foundation Academy. We sit on the CET teams for all those. 29 isn't in receivership, but we have a lot of them joining us from time to time. So anyways, but there are some schools that I feel that we've kind of missed, which is School 2 and School 4 amongst the various schools. And those are right in the area of Swan. So that's... when we got started on this, one of our big objectives, besides getting School 16 renovated and the School 10 renovated, was to make sure that when they reopened, that they reopened as community schools. And we lucked out in that the state gave that as an option for some of the things that schools that were in receivership could do to help themselves get out of receivership. So we've been making an effort to sit in on the CET teams of the schools in the Southwest here to see how things are going, and Lee is working with volunteers over at School 10. So anyways, that's trying to make sure that those teams, that those schools do well. One of the things we've been pushing for is, and I'd like your input on this, Moses, was to get more local involvement in the community schools so that parents can easily visit the school when they need to either teach, talk with teachers or parents, or visit to see a play or whatever, because we've heard a lot about difficulty in parents getting to their child's school if it's on the other side of town, which a lot of them are these days. So it looks like we may get half mile busing through Albany this year. They've got new bills put in for the Senate and the Assembly, and we can only hope that they actually get acted upon and then signed by the governor. What's your take from what you've seen working with the various schools, Moses, as far as the pluses and minuses of having heavy local involvement in the school?
I think if I understand your question correctly, you mean local involvement as far as parents and as far as
having the students come from the neighborhood where the school is in.
I think what that does is that it creates an asset for the neighborhood. You know, I believe that those kids who are from those neighborhoods oftentimes, you know, like if you look at the civil rights movement, for instance, right? The civil rights, the pillars of the civil rights movement were three things. Were number one was the school, number two was the family, and number three was the church. And so those three things we can't ever leave out in terms of building what we call asset-based community development within the community and how that partnership is relevant to not just the school, but the businesses that surround the school. So I think it's important for the investment process to be what is the connection between how the school is a center focus of safety and development, as well as business partnership to make families, connect families. That's my personal belief, but I think that again it's what oh God, there's Mary Coffey.
I know, sis.
You know each other.
Talking about schools, which I think is very important.
Well, in the educational process is important for all kids, but it's also important for adults. But one of the things I always say, and this may hurt some people's feelings, and I'm really sorry to have to say this, but I have to say the truth as I know it. Until you make the building safe, it's going to be very difficult for kids to learn in an environment where the climate.
Absolutely.
Where the climate is not safe and conducive for learning. There has to be and there must be buy-in from everyone in the community, especially in the local community, where we're talking about investment in the schools and community schools. The partnership must work towards not just trying to build academic success as a priority, but they should make sure that the school itself is safe for children to want to go to school and for parents to feel that their children can be in a school where it's safe. I mean, we talk a lot about academic success, but I hear very little about, what is it going to take as a collaborative effort to make the building safe where children and parents can feel that when they send their child to school, that they're going to come home and they're going to be educated. And that not only that, even teachers, teachers a teacher must be in an environment where she or he can teach and that there's no disruption. And I think if we look at, and I say this respectfully, but if we look at all the other educational institutions and environments around the city of Rochester and the County of Monroe, I'm going to tell you something. Safety is first.
What do you have any ideas?
Who, me?
Yeah, what's the best way we can work all together to make our schools safe?
Okay, then number one, who is the children in our schools? They're the highest investment for us. In fact, no matter what in the world, everyone who realizes that if there's going to be a future, it's going to come from the safety of our children being safe. No community is safe if the kids are not safe. That's number one. So the school is actually a small microcosm of many things that the children bring into the building. Their different attitudes, cultures, they bring it right from home to the school and from school to home. So there has to be a relationship that's built on positive engagement, making children feel safe and respecting their diversity, respecting their ideas, creating a safe place for children to learn. So the question becomes, have we talked, even in their own school environment, have we developed a survey that is a confidential survey where children can download an app or the parents can download an app to talk about on the survey or engage in the survey to say, what do they feel are issues of safety within the school? And then they look and say, okay, well, we talked to the children about this. Now let's talk to the adults. Let's talk to even the janitor to see how they feel about the school climate, to see if this school is conducive and environments conducive to learning. And then we cross-reference those and see what the students are saying, what the parents are saying, and or the teachers are saying, or even what the parents are saying. So we just want to be able to collect the data and move in a data-informed decision way that creates the opportunity to have the conversation based on what the data is saying about safety in the school. And I'm not saying that the schools aren't safe. I'm only saying, what do the kids think? What do the teachers think? And let's move towards making it safe for them to learn.
Good.
Do you think putting back into the schools the police were removed, do you think would be important? I know you had a good relationship with the students, Moses.
Yeah,
I
I
worked
love
with you
kids.
with East.
Yeah, I love kids. I'd rather work with the
I
kids
know.
than work with some of y'all. But anyway,
I
that's
know.
another subject.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later.
Yeah, but let me just say this, and I pray this honestly makes a relevant point. Do you think that children and students have a say and should be heard about what they feel about the building
Yes.
they're in? Okay, and they should, right?
Yeah.
So here's Moses, so ancient and decrepit here, talking about kids and their safety. When I think that we always talk about youth voice and empowerment, then we should create a vehicle where the kids can talk to the adults about what they feel safety looks like. You know, I can sit back all day long. I'll probably be dead tomorrow. But the reality is they got another 4 years or 3 years or 6 years into this system. And should not this system respect their ideas about how they feel about their safety as a community, how they feel about the community outside the school, how they feel about their neighborhood? And yet we ask them to feel like, you know, we listen to them. Really do we? So I think if we... Yeah, because if the kids don't want police in the school, they should be the ones that say, we don't want police in school. Or some type of system where, yeah, we want the police in school, but this is how it looks. So as we begin to ask them questions, they begin to feel, wow, they really notice me. They ask me the question.
Come on.
What about social workers, Moses? You think our children live in a war zone today? Some of them. Do you think we have need for more social workers? And
I think we need all hands on deck. Let me say this to you. I think all hands on deck. And I pray that this doesn't offend certain people, but one of the things that we realize are the best practices, and these are some of the best practices from some of the work I'm doing with the U.S. Department of Justice and the Department of Education and the Office of Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention. These are organizations I work with, and some of the research that we're talking about in terms of systems of care is that the people who are relevant to intervention and prevention in these moments, they must have a cultural significance, and they must have a gender significance as well, because these things are very important. Language barriers are very important. People want to be able to express themselves in a way where they feel that the person sitting across from them understands where they're coming from. And that becomes very important, because if I have to talk with someone and I realize that or believe in my heart, and this is what trauma-informed care is all about, that, you know, this person is going to have a lens to understand the social emotional connection that I have to the pain I've been through. Mm-hmm. And so that becomes very important when we're putting people like social workers and police officers and those people who are what I like to call, community servant leadership capacity to be in the school to help to work with our kids. But we want to create the capacity for those people to understand the cultural significance and the gender specific differences that many of our kids are having to go through. Those people should be right in the school. There should be a one-stop shop in the school that helps connect teachers to students, students to teachers, students to people that they're going to run into for the most of their lives, and how they should respond. And one of the things I've always said is that, as far as the police department is concerned, kids should never be afraid of people who are supposed to protect them. So if the kids don't know them, then how can you protect me? You know, and we should not be waiting till a crisis moment erupts, and now we're trying to figure this thing out, and now all of a sudden people are getting hurt because of our ignorance And I'm a little angry now because I can honestly see this happening. You know, we are waiting for something to happen in order to try to fix it when we have the ability right now, including in this Zoom meeting, to work together as a group of people that love the community and fix this thing before it gets to the point where our kids are hurt or our families are hurt or people are so severely damaged that they don't trust the system that's supposed to protect them.
And I think too, your empathy, which you really have, everyone should have that same empathy that the children can feel they understand their pain and all work together to help.
Yep. We're trying to see where people keep moving around on the screen.
I see Marilyn's hand is up.
Marilyn.
Reverend Cunningham.
Yeah, my question is this. I got a question and a concern. Was there a job description when police officers were in school?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Was it driven by what the principal wanted to happen in each school? Was it principal driven?
Yes, ma'am.
So that means from one school to the next, it might differ.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The other question I have is, back in the day when my children were in school, there was a program called Officer Friendly, and they were in the elementary school. I don't know what they did on the upper level in high school, but on the elementary, and that gave the children a chance to view officers in a different view. And I know things are different now, but it gave children a chance to see officers in a different light. At the end of that school year, they got a certificate. All my kids got certificates that they had went there. I think it was called the DARE program.
Yes, ma'am.
The thing of it is, Moses, the Civil Liberties Union drove that issue of getting officers out of the school because of the way some of the officers were handling some of the children. They really honed in on the fact that children were being handcuffed. Some children were feeling threatened. So, you know, we want to be safe. We want our children to be safe. But it's what it looks like. It has to look like all across the board. It can't be so different at one school than it is at another school. And so safety in the schools, I'm for that. But if the job description is not clear, that's not helping parents either.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I want. Yes, ma'am. You know what, Mother, you've always been a phenomenal advocate in the community, especially for everyone in the community. And this, again, highlights my deep appreciation and respect for you tremendously. Because what I want to say is that you're 100% correct. In light of what you said, I was a school resource officer. Many of you guys know that, especially Marilyn. But I was removed from my position as an SRO. And I won't go into it too deeply, other than I had the opportunity to go to the U.S. Department of Justice, the White House, as a school resource officer, and the only school resource officer at the time that was able to speak. And I spoke at a quarterly hearing with many of the U.S. Department of Justice partners, which was the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, the Department of Education, the Department of Education Civil Rights Bureau, and Mother Cunningham is exactly correct. What was said to me and the four other panelists that were there, and there were 25 different organizations that were also present during our testimony at the U.S. Department of Justice. And one of the things that was said, and I'm going to be very honest, yet hurtful, was that they believe that in the primarily urban districts is that the school resource officers were being utilized by school districts to create what at that time they were calling the school to prison pipeline. And it was hurtful for me. And during my testimony, as a school resource officer here in Rochester, New York, at that time assigned to East High School, I told the panel of 24 government partners that I, Moses Robinson, do not arrest kids. I do not arrest kids, and we should not be arresting children. Supportive school discipline is a measure of how do you discipline appropriately based on so many different factors, social, emotional, disabilities, and different things that we as a community here in Rochester with 4 or 5 different academic institutions that we can come up with a way that would provide equity and can provide balance to discipline when it comes to students and parents to really lift up the bar where students can graduate, but also having a trauma-informed lens of what we need to do to connect education to success, but also there has to be a foundation of safety. And so some people kind of didn't like that. And because the school district became the main funders of the School Resource Officers Program. So the boss became the district. We have, as a school resource officer unit, what we call a memorandum of understanding. And all school districts across the country enter into a memorandum of understanding with their law enforcement partners. And so that memorandum of understanding is the criteria of the partnership between the school district, the school, and law enforcement. It is the do's and the don'ts, and it articulates professionally what our relationships are. And so for me, being one of the first SROs in the program here in the city of Rochester, New York, and this program is called the Cops in School program, was allocated with $86 million signed by then in the crime bill by Bill Clinton, allocated $86 million to put school resource officers in schools. So the primary responsibility or role of the school resource officers was exactly what Mother Cunningham was explaining, which is to build relevant relationships with kids. That was the primary focus. But when you don't revisit your memorandum of understanding and you don't revisit the mission and the roles, and we sit down together and talk about how is this working, then it becomes skewed.
Yeah.
And you have what we got. You throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah.
And instead of revisiting and sitting down together and doing some hard thinking and making some hard choices, agreeing to disagree, but still leaving the table with an understanding that this is going to work and this is the way we need to try it. Mm-hmm. And then revisit it several months down the road. And if that's not working, then try something new. But the way how it is now is just once Civil Liberties Union got involved and they looked at it from that prison to pipeline, it hurt us.
Yeah, it really did. It really did. And I'm saying this as, and I say this respectfully, as a person who is a national speaker on this subject, on school to prison pipelines and many of the organizations, the COPS programs. I'm still doing work with them because some of our protest community members still love them. I know you working with them, Mother Cunningham. We still at it because we have to bring a level of some of the things that, you know, they talked about in terms of police reform, reimagining police, you know, and what my work as a community liaison officer is to do to bring, you know, strategies around those issues of police reform and reimagining police. And I think that we're still on the in the process based on Executive Order 203, the state of New York, which is what is this community outreach to the police departments, to the community, the faith-based community, the Black Lives Matter protest community. What is our obligation to continue to do outreach and bring some level of collaboration and coordination for safety in these communities? This still is part of what the work that needs to be done.
Yep. Melody, you've got your hand up.
I do. So I have a couple of things to say regarding several of the comments that have been made so far. So one, I'm not going to say them in any order because I've been kind of writing them down. But for me, first of all, I've been in the district, RCSD, for 21 years. I have not been in high schools. I've been in elementary schools. I've been in multiple elementary schools. I've never been in a school with a police officer, but I've always been. But I've always been in a school with an SSO. So those relationships, at least in our building, and I'm at 19, our practice is to use the teachers, our support staff from Center for Youth. The SSO is the absolute last person that we call on in the building. And I think that's really important. That's a message that needs to be sent. I think a lot of times people have, and I can't speak for any other school, but a lot of people have this perception that a kid does something wrong and they're just going to try to call the cop in the building and come get them. It doesn't work that way, at least in our building. And I thought that was important for everybody to know. The other thing that I wanted to mention was prior to the pandemic, we had officers that came in to our lunch periods and ate lunches with the kids. And every so often they would order pizza for the kids. And it was really a beautiful thing to see. I had not seen that at any other school but 19. With everything that happened throughout COVID and the riots and the different protests and so on and so forth, that stopped when we returned. And I'm not exactly sure why. I mean, some people have expressed, it's just not a path we want to go down right now because we're nervous about bringing them in, the attitudes of parents, how will they feel, how will the students feel. So I think it's important for me to be here and hear the attitudes of other people who feel like, well, maybe, they are needed and they can be beneficial. It depends on how they're used in the building. And the other thing I wanted to mention, Mary, you mentioned earlier, do we need more social workers? And I'm going to say we need more than social workers. We need people who are licensed mental health professionals. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you right now, every school that has a social worker, which is all schools, some more than one, have a full caseload. And then you have parents who come to you who want help for their kids, but they can't get them to appointments, or they can't take off of work, or they don't have transportation. And it's so important. Every school has at least 20 kids that would benefit from therapeutic counseling, like true anger management, dealing with issues of being in and out of foster care, or, just they come to school and it's one way, but they go home and it's another way. And it's not every kid, but in any one classroom of 20 kids, you might have 2 or 3 kids that are like that. And let me tell you, that will offset the balance of the room. Doesn't mean we don't love the kids. It doesn't mean that we don't build relationships with them. I can't say every school is like 19, and 19 is not perfect. We're learning every day. But I think we have to, if we're gonna break any type of cycle And right now there's a cycle that needs to be broken. We have to, we just have to address the whole child. We can't just, because they're not going to learn if they're affected by trauma every time they walk through the door, because of what happened the night before or what happened for years, right? And now they just you're having to peel back those layers of the onion to get them to move forward and heal. But not everybody in our building is a professional and even knows how to do trauma-informed care. And so that's just a couple of thoughts. I appreciate you being here, Moses. And I would love to have you come to School 19 and meet with us and see what we can do to bring those officers back. And or maybe just have you, I mean, we can talk offline, but have you come meet with our middle schoolers. Like, I would love to have some conversations, more conversations, because I think it's really important because they're hearing so much. And I want them to form their own opinions and not just adopt that of the world that is around them, and recognize you got to take the good and you got to take the bad, and you can't just throw it all out, as Marilyn said, with the baby with the bathwater. So I'm done. That's I just wanted to contribute and share my thoughts.
Very good thinking.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, one of the reasons I was so interested in having you join us is, Shaniqua Smith knows I've been attending a lot of meetings relating to the Southwest Common Council, the Neighborhood Service Center, and there's a lot of concern, of course, about all the shootings that we've had in the area. And I figured sooner or later we're going to get back onto the officers in the classrooms, and I'd like to make sure that it's done, if we do that it's done properly, because we need so much more having people who can work effectively with kids to get them over some of their trauma and get the parents involved and try to work things out. And then I hear, I said in this budget meeting yesterday and watched the board dealing with the fact that budgets are being cut back a little bit. They certainly aren't getting all the people they need to accomplish that. And we really need to get parents and groups like this talking in a way that is focusing on what the kids need, what the school needs to get safety into the schools, without getting into a situation where we've got people screaming, "Get the cops out," or I don't know whether it's police officers or social workers, psychiatrically trained people who can work with the kids. That's what we need. And I've been disappointed to see, that School 17, which was working very hard to get more interaction with the kids so that kids are brought down to a less stressful level if they come in with a whole pile of issues on their backs. And I like what you were saying, and I don't know whether it's, what's the best way for us to go forward?
Get the money.
Yeah.
All right, you ready for this?
Sure.
I'm going to read something to you guys. Do you mind, Mary, if I go?
Oh, you go. You go.
Okay.
Because I'm going to talk about money too.
Okay. Because I listened to, actually this afternoon, a solicitation that came out to talk to school districts and those who were interested getting that money. All right, and here we go. It goes like this: COPS program. The office of the COPS office is pleased to announce that the following grant funding opportunity is now open and accepting applications. School Violence Prevention Program, SVPP. The 2000 COPS Office Violence Prevention Program is a competitive program that provides funding directly to states, units of local government, Indian tribes, and their public agencies to use to improve school and school ground in their jurisdictions of grantees through evidence-based safety programs. Up to $53 million is available.
Get the money.
Who do you think I sent that to?
Superintendent, I hope.
I'm just
And
saying.
the mayor.
I'm just saying. So it's not, listen, we're not stupid people. There's money out there. We just got to go out there and get it. And we have to, and one of the things that was really emphasized in the presentation that was talked about is that we can't do this without a partnership. And since Rochester is very rich in terms of partnerships, the connection between these partnerships when writing this grant money will help us almost guarantee us the ability to get this money. All right. So the money's there. And so all I'm saying is that, and I agree with, oh, she's gone? Melody. You know, you can't, you know, there's a book I'll call Feed the Teachers So They Don't Eat the Kids. And that's a reality, because what people don't realize that when you're less of a trauma-informed school, you don't recognize the trauma lens, even in the adults that are supposed to protect the children. You know, one of the things that happened to me the other day was I was at not a homicide scene, but a shooting. And at this shooting, this little girl looks up at this adult when the adult comes into the kitchen area, and she's been shot. The little girl looks up at this adult and says these words: "Do you love me now?
Oh.
Do you love me now?"
Oh.
And I don't know if any other cop picked up on that.
That's powerful.
But a trauma lens helps us all, particularly those who are the guardians of our children, see something that most adults don't see, and hear some of the things that most adults don't hear. And so I'm only bringing this up because I'm just trying to say to you that no one should be in our school. I don't care who you are, how long you've been teaching. If you don't understand the cumulative effects of trauma 2022 on the lives of children, especially as it pertains to education, and especially if it pertains to law enforcement, especially if it pertains to parenting, then we need to get educated. Because no one at this day and age should be in front of a child who doesn't understand or is not willing to be trained on what a trauma lens look like. And that's what the Barack Obama administration and what we did around the country is that we went around schools, districts, to help them understand what a trauma-informed school looks like.
Yeah. Let's see. You had your hand up, Mary? Mary?
And I was going to speak of money too. New York State per capita per child has one of the highest amount of money being put into the child. I think what we have to do is make sure that money is spent correctly. I don't know how, but that's something we have to do. And Moses, I think you can contest to East High School before Sean Nelms and U of R and the East High School of today, because you worked with us when the children were leaving all day, doing drugs behind the building. I used to think that these poor parents are sending their children to school and they have no idea what's going on. And U of R came in, and then everybody said, well, they have more money. They can give more to the child. And I do believe they brought in their mental health. They brought in their social workers. I've done things down at East High School. The interaction between the teachers and the children is amazing. The children coming in and out of the school today, they're just entirely different children than we were before. I think they know they're loved and look is important in the school. Now, Moses, do you agree? I mean, I think East isn't, I mean, there are some good situations and some bad situations.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
I think that that's an example of an improvement. I think other schools can model what East is doing. And some of the things you talked about, like, social emotional learning, those kinds of things, based on those who are social emotional learners, it makes them safe. And so I think that, we need to do what is necessary to put the right people in the room and the right people in the building that children have access to in their time of crisis to help them process what's happening to them at that moment. And I think that's, again, is part of a trauma approach. Make the building safe. Put the right people in the building that kids feel connected to, and they will go to school. Give them activities and give them, as I said, activities that will make them look forward to being in school and staying in school. And then, holding them accountable to a degree for not being in school, but also holding them accountable in a way where we find out, why do you not want to come here? What makes this place for you unsafe? And engaging parents in that conversation as well. And I think, as I said before, the school climate should be indicative to, how kids learn. There's just no way around it, guys. There's no way around it. We can put all the programs in the world in a good school or a school, but if the school building and the kids feel it's not safe, and I'm sorry, I love all of you guys. I love the school, and I want to see us do better, but we have to have the honest conversation. We have to have the honest conversation. And it's hurtful, but the scriptures say you shall know the truth. And I'm hoping some of this set us free. But we just have to. And not every officer should be in the school, not a school in the city of Rochester. But that question should be up to the school district, should be in collaboration and partnership with the SRO, should be in partnership with the kids, it should be in partnership with the staff to make sure that that's a perfect fit for everybody in this partnership.
Marilyn, did you have another?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask Moses, Officer Mose, the other day at this particular incident, was PIC called in?
No, they were not called in because it was an emergency response.
Okay, so there was no one there. Go ahead.
No, they had to get emergency assistance for this person.
Okay, so what was done with the child that said what she did? Was she shot?
Yes.
Okay. Were they referred? Was PIC referred? Because when a statement is made like that, when the officer is on site, do the sergeant, who's in charge, who makes the call that they need some mental referral? Who makes that call?
Number one, in a situation like that, the first need is to get emergency assistance and render emergency assistance to the child.
Okay.
We can't delay the fact that this child or this person who's had this injury, this penetrating trauma situation, we don't have the time to talk at that point.
Okay, I understand that because it's a matter of life or death. But once that child goes into the hospital and if the child is stable, what happens after that, Mose? Or you can't discuss that with us?
No, I've actually believe that you're 100% correct, because now I think the issue of, you know, saving a person's life is first and foremost, but then there should be some intervention, which I have been involved with some of the team members to follow up on that.
Okay, okay, that's what I was listening for.
I don't play with this.
Okay.
I don't play. No. When I social emotionally see something and I want to make sure that there's some follow-up.
There's a follow-up.
Yeah, I don't, in all kinds of respects, man. She's a victim.
And the other thing I wanted to state is you're right. A lot of times we engage, but we don't engage the students. I'm working with a group now, another group that the district has put together. And so they wanted me to be in it. And one of the things that I found out, the students asked a question concerning DASA. I didn't know what DASA was. And I've done some research on it. And the student says, I don't believe the teachers even know how to fill out a DASA form. Well, you know me, Moses. You know that made me highly upset. Because if it's something that the district should be doing and the teachers should know about it, and the professionals should know how to fill out a form, you know that made me highly upset. But here we have the student that made this statement, and it's concerning bullying. And it was enacted in the law, I think, 2010. And then you have students that go to teachers, and teachers don't even know how to do the fill out the forms.
Wow.
So Reverend Cunningham,
Melody,
Reverend Cunningham, what's a DASA form?
It has to do, Melody, you want to help me?
Yeah, it has to do with the Dignity Act, and it has to do, so I just want to clarify, teachers aren't permitted necessarily to fill out the DASA form. Each building, at least in the Rochester City School District, has a DASA coordinator who is responsible for putting in the DASA reports. And it can't just be, somebody just said something about me. That's not a DASA report. A DASA report has to be filed due to real bullying. It has to be repeated. It has a repeated offense. It has to be something that is asserting power over another person. And then it can get reported. There is the ability for students, I thought, I'll have to check into this, Reverend Cunningham, and I know I'll see you on Sunday.
Yeah, but I'm very upset, Melody, because like Moses is saying, this is a case where you have students on this call saying they went to the teacher and the teacher did not fill out the form correctly. So we gotta find a way to come together and talk.
Yeah.
I mean, all of us. We gotta hear what the children are saying too. We gotta listen to the teachers, but we also gotta hear the kids.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you.
What's going on in this city, as mental health, bullying, even if you don't have a mental social worker, a full-time social, even if you have a full-time social worker, you also need a 0.5 social worker. You understand what I'm saying, Melody? Melody,
I agree with you 100%, 100%.
Because you got the kids that need the extra help. That's what that 0.5 would help do. Or wherever the balance needs to be balanced. And Moses, what you're talking about all of that money that's available, we need to sit down at the table.
Yeah.
I mean, and you need clergy at the table. You need the whole village at the table.
Mm-hmm.
If we love these kids, and let me just say this, I've been knowing Moses for a long time. Moses is like the poster person. working in the school, and he knows how I feel about him as far as the job he did. He walks what he talks what he walks. And Moses, I don't know if you, but I'm just gonna say it. I looked at Moses on a YouTube, and I don't know who took that, who videoed it, but this person this was a young man that gave Moses all kind of problems. And Moses said, get in the car. And the person just kept cursing Moses out. And Moses said, get in the car. You know, not one time did Moses knock that guy out. Not one time did Moses take that guy and throw him down or grab his throat. Not one time did Moses pull out his gun. And the whole time the guy was challenging Moses. But you know something? After a while, that guy got in that back of that police car and sat down. And so I really respect Moses. And we need people like Moses from the police department that can sit down. You know, I meet with chiefs every month. Moses know that because Moses is in the meeting. And it's one thing talking to the chiefs of police from around the Court, Webster, Fairport. But you got to be able to talk to these guys that's on the street, the guys that like Moses, because they're the ones. The chiefs know a lot, but still, these what is it, rank and file guys? These are the people we need at the table to get their point of view, because they're the ones looking at the danger right in the face. I'm through.
Okay, let's see. We've got 3 hands up now. Who?
Oh,
Mary's been patient. Go ahead, Mary.
Mine's down.
Okay.
But good comments from the reverends and everybody.
Okay, I have a question because I know we've been talking about the schools and the police department, but I just want to bring up a separate breakdown and see if you have any suggestions on or ways that the community is addressing this. So I was privy to a situation with a family, a mother who has multiple sons, one that does not attend my school. But she ended up calling the police on her son. And the police basically told her that, and obviously this is hearsay, but ma'am, you need to discipline your son. Her point was, I can't, you know, if I discipline him, you're going to be carrying me out of here in handcuffs because I got to hurt him or he's really going to hurt me, essentially. And it was expressing her fearfulness of the rest of her children in the house. A couple days later, the child ends up on a mental health arrest, goes to a hospital. When he's at the hospital, they go to release him and call the mom. And the mom said, I'm not picking him up. Oh, I need help. Like, I need somebody to help me. You know, and I didn't know what to say. I just did not have the answer at that moment of who to connect her with. But basically then the hospital called CPS on her for abandonment. So what do we do, or how do we help these families that are in crisis outside of the school day, but they have enough trust to reach out to us to try to get the help they need for their families, and they're looking at the hospital, they're not helping. They don't really feel like the police is the best solution. How do we help? I mean, we have Center for Youth in our school, but that's not doing it either. So how do we help these teenagers that are in crisis, that are dealing with mental health?
One of the things I want to say to everybody here, and I say this with as much humility as possible, the Rochester, New York, Monroe County Family Court needs to be trauma informed.
Okay.
Do you understand?
So how do we advocate that?
If I'm the judge and I slam the gavel on the desk, all y'all better respect, because here comes the judge. So in saying that, what judges have an opportunity of doing when they become trauma informed, and those who are at that capacity, is to usher in community service providers and partners to the table and family court that will hopefully hold organizations accountable, hold parents accountable appropriately, but usher in an ability for these services to help families within the community.
And they do.
So to get to court, do they have to press charges against their own children?
No, but if a parent goes to court, because obviously if a child is, and this is why I look at a trauma lens, because if a child is acting out angrily, the discipline of that child is actually the child calling out for help.
Yeah.
Because they're children, they don't know any other way of going around it other than just run away, act out.
Right.
Until they learn a different language, which is again part of what trauma and trauma court and trauma response is all about, is to show the child how they can get our attention without acting out in a way that is this delinquency. So the close link between delinquency and trauma is so close. It's like this. So therefore, we have an obligation in the school environment, working with our partners in family court, is to usher into these services, whether it's from Center for Youth, Coordinated Care Services, and Rochester is resource rich. But oftentimes what begins to happen is that young portion and that mother that's struggling, what happens is that child ends up not going to school. Something like 20% of our kids don't go to school, and that was like 5 years ago. But what happens is that they're remanded to detention centers where they actually pay, the County of Monroe pays over $250,000 per child. Did you hear the words that are coming out of my mouth? Yes. Per child for care. So now here's an opportunity for us to roll back, use our referral and resources to save the county money, and here's a child that is going into and to be remanded. Many of these children go undiagnosed and they have a current existing mental health condition. And I say this respectfully. Not only does the child have it, but the parent has it also.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
right.
One thing, we're running a little late, but if everybody can hang in there a bit, it's a very interesting discussion. One thing that I know yesterday there were a number of people who were protesting at the school board meeting, or as people were going in. And I heard, I get mail from several groups that I'm involved with, and I was kind of happy to see that there were some people from the Rochester Coalition for Public Education that were involved with some of the folks from the Citizens Action Committee, and they're talking about trying to work together to make sure that things get done right. And that's been one of the things I've been doing for a number of years now, is trying to get the various people who are trying to solve their problems to work together. Have you ever talked with the Coalition for Public Education, Rochester Coalition for Public Education, Moses?
No, sir.
And yes, Mary.
John, Moses, I had worked for Child Protective, and that the county has all kinds of resources. Like if there's educational neglect, then they should not go in at the end of the year. They should go in immediately. This county can go interview, find out. They can put someone in like Catholic Family or one of the other agencies to go help the family. This should be tied more to the city school district. also, when there's trauma and they have child protector called in, then they should put someone in to help the family too. Those resources, those caseworkers, we had to put in if we found a child was at risk and the family needed help. Especially look at that for truancy.
This is the first year, Mary, in probably 10 years that they were allowing us or accepting educational neglect cases from the city school district.
Well, they were supposed to turn every in at the end. Well, they were supposed to turn them on all the time.
No, they weren't. That's what I'm saying.
Well, then that Moses, that should be worked with the county. With
they are now, but they're so overwhelmed. I mean, it's. And I'm not making an excuse for them.
No.
They need to hire more people.
I worked the job, believe me. Up at 11 o'clock on the streets at night. Moses, but it's something they should be another resource for our children. An important resourse.
We have to also, and I'm sorry, but I just want to say that we have to stop working in silos. We have to start coordinating and communicating, cross systems communication, because you're going to find that the same child and the same parents are connected to 5 or 6 different groups. And those groups need to start sharing information respectfully. But I'm just going to say to you guys this. I worked for the Council for Juvenile Justice and Family Court Judges. And I'm only going to say this, beloved, as much as we talk about all these things, if we do not develop a capacity to have our family court judges see trauma for what it is, we are punishing trauma. We're not treating trauma. We are punishing kids for not knowing how to live, how to survive, how to act. We are punishing them. And we as adults are permitting this behavior because we refuse to recognize it for what it is, trauma.
Right.
Phyllis, you've got your hand up, and then I want to say a few more things. Phyllis?
I can't figure out how to turn my camera on right now, but can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
Okay. I have to tell you, my heart breaks listening to this conversation.
Yes.
I worked at Bosie's for 8 years before the pandemic hit. And I want to talk to you specifically, Mr. Robinson. At Bosie's, they have layers of security to keep the building safe. The first layer is the paras. Every room has could have up to 5 or 6 adults in it. And if there's an issue in the room, the paras are trained. They're therapeutic crisis intervention. Every person in the building, including the janitors, are trained in therapeutic crisis intervention. If the paras can't handle a situation in a classroom, there's a button they can hit and get 3 to 5 more adults, a support team that comes in and helps with that situation. If that level of security doesn't work, that we have a security force that is hired that works for Bosie's, and if they can't handle it, then we call the police. I know that there are school districts all over this region. I'm in a meeting. Okay. I know there's school districts from all over the region that send their students there that they can't handle within their building. And I'm told it costs about $35,000 a year for a student to be there. So districts really don't want to send their students there, but sometimes they have no choice. But there are so many students that are just under that line that city school district and other schools are trying to handle, and they don't have the training to do it. So when you talk about hiring more social workers, what is there, 26,000 students in the district? We need more than social workers. We need every individual, all the teachers. We need more paras that are trained, TCI trained, And that means sometimes you have to be trained in physical self-defense. We had to do TCI training 2 times a year. So that training sometimes is as simple as when a child is in crisis, you close your mouth. Yes. And you don't make what's called provocative statements that escalate the child to the red zone. Do you all know what the red zone is?
Yes.
So we have too many people. And how is it that the teachers can choose what kind of training that they want to take? Like, and in the trauma-informed care, you're right. Everyone should know what that is and be trained in that. That will be a much faster way to deal with this situation than trying to hire more social workers, enough social workers to handle 26,000 kids. That's not going to happen. The employees that are there, they don't have the training to deal with what these kids are going through. I have a child in my home, the one that just came in my room, who's just below the line to be able to get to be in a special ed school. But I thank God that I have that training. But there's so many people that don't, and parents too. Some of these kids, I don't know how they're handling their kids at home without that training. So maybe that's something that this committee and others can push for, is that everybody needs to be trained, and it needs to be mandatory.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. I agree. Thank you, Ms. Moss.
The other thing that I'd like to do, besides get you involved with the Rochester Coalition for Public Education, is also see what I can do at getting the Citizens Action AQE group, Education Committee group, to talk with you. And they are probably on the end of the spectrum of not really wanting to see police in the classroom.
I'd love to talk to them.
You'd like to talk to them, yes. Well,
absolutely.
I'd like to have you do that. We're going to have to do a little work. You have probably heard the big ruckus over at Brockport when Jaleel Muntequin was going to talk.
Yes, sir.
I met him at a meeting, an education committee meeting at the that Citizens Action was having when he was just joining them as the organizer for the education committee there. And he was really, interesting. There hadn't been an uproar yet. I don't think most people knew exactly his background. And he was with the Black Panthers, when they were being persecuted, perhaps, not given the respect that they should have had for what they were trying to accomplish in the black community. And he ended up killing 2 police officers. And this was back 45, 50 years ago.
In the 50s.
In the 50s.
And
and that's not a nice thing to do, and I agree with it. Also, something that has really helped a lot of us see a lot of the things going on is these cell phone cameras, which have taken pictures of many of the things that most of us didn't want to believe were really going on. I walked PACTAC for about 30 years. I was out there trying to get the community and the police, closer together and working together. And when I'd hear about Reverend this or that screaming bloody murder, that there was police violence, all these nice cops I was working with, they couldn't be really doing this. And so you kind of dismiss some of the things that you hear because you're not tuned in to all the various groups that are trying to improve the world around them. And as time went on, I started looking at some of the things going on and saying, it's not quite, the attitude that some of the officers have. While they're wonderful people and I trust them they should be looking at it from a little, a broader perspective than, oh, it's a police officer, I can't say anything bad about them. So anyways, in the past few years, we've been all getting a lot more educated about everything that's gone on in our country. And I was pleased, recently when I heard, I got an email where, I'm terrible with names, but one of the folks from the Coalition for Public Education was working with Jalil Muntaquin to try to organize the protest at the central office. So they're talking together, and that's good, because I think he's a good person. I mean, he did some terrible things, but he's also worked hard for the last 50 years educating himself, and I think he's got a lot of good to offer the community. And I think it would be good to try to get those two groups working together, and whether it's, people trained in working with people who are troubled that we put in the schools, or whether it's police officers that are suitably trained in the same issues to recognize when kids are having difficulties that need to be dealt with from a emotional standpoint. We need to make sure that we have the right resources in our schools to be able to do that. And the way you do that is get everybody working on the same issues of trying to get the right resources where they're needed. And what you were referring to, money being available, that's something we should all, look at and see what's going on. So I think that's something that, we need everybody, and I've worked with Citizens Action and also Metro Justice, and they approach things more from the confrontation, get a demonstration out there to bring attention of the public to this or that. And there are times when that's a very effective way to do things, and there are other times where one-on-one interactions between people, I tend to be more the talker rather than getting placards up, but I've also seen that really is useful for some applications. So
Can I say something about this? I just want to say that one of the things I learned about, and I'm going to be honest with you, and I think this was detrimental to people protesting, and this is what I believe was detrimental. And I think that, being between both worlds, one of the things that happened was people garnered as much knowledge about the other person to make a point and to be heard and to make their point come across to the other folk. But this is a marriage. And in this marriage, to survive at this point in our world, we should learn as much about the other person's weakness, not to point it out, but to help them through it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you say, oh, yeah, brother, but listen, there are people who literally get in the room and start bashing each other because they're different, because they have a different idea, because they don't get along. And it's really sad. And that's why the violence that we're seeing is atypical, because of some of those issues that we refuse to just move forward on. Our kids and our community right now, the safety of our community depends on us not looking at each other's weaknesses We're looking at the things that we agree on. And the survival of our community, the protection of our children in particular, is the one thing that we have to learn, that we got to agree. We can disagree on so many different levels. But if we don't agree that right now in the city of Rochester, New York, and then in the Rochester City School District, whether you agree that we have hamburgers or we have chicken fingers, or it's like, really, our people are hurt. So I'm asking, and I think we've been pretty successful, is what can we agree on to move forward that creates safety and garner safety? So I don't want you coming to me telling me what I've done. And many of the people come to me and say, you're doing a good job, which motivates me to do better. But if but I want to say this again. Some of the people who are out there doing the protests have trauma themselves.
Oh, yeah.
And so therefore, they, in some cases, can't move past what they're doing at that moment in order to see the bigger picture, the spiritual picture, the motivational picture, the picture that says we want better for our children and they deserve it. Move past yourself. Get over yourself. Get over yourself. Recognize what you're saying, what you're doing is hurtful to other people. Go to the Lord of Jesus Christ by the well. Go to Muhammad. Go to Dalai Lama, whatever. But try to be better the next day instead of pointing out other people's wrong and beating them because they don't have the same opinion as you.
Yep.
And sometimes, Moses, we have to say that.
Thank you,
we
man.
We just got to say it. We got to say it. And look. You might not agree, but at least we can sit at the table and be agreeable. I don't have to agree along with what you're doing, but I'm not going to turn into somebody that's going to be so disagreeable I have to leap up from the table. And sometimes people have to hear what you need to say. And I'm
going to be honest with you. Mother Cunningham, when I first became the liaison for the Rochester Police Department, there was things that she had to put me in my place. And you know what I did? No, I'm serious. Because I was like, what is this all about? And she had to put me in my place. And she's like, look, son, you need to listen. I'm like, yes, ma'am. And I had to listen. That's true.
Respect factor. It was the respect factor, Moses.
Yes.
You had to respect. And that's
I had to
the
respect.
bottom line.
I think we have to remember we're here for the children.
Yep. Exactly.
It's about the children, not us, not our egos.
Okay.
Moses, in the chat, Mary Coffey asked, is there anything that we can do to help obtain the funding, like write letters or something?
Yeah, I would assume that that's a powerful message. I will send it to John, the link to the funding, and he could distribute it to you guys, and we could talk about as an organization supporting the group that's applying for the grant. You know, not complaining and saying, well, why aren't we doing this and why aren't we doing that? No, say, listen, as an organization, we believe that safety is very important for our children. And what can we do to help support getting this grant? You know, who needs to be at the table to get this grant for our babies?
Yeah.
And I'm going to recommend that you come up with some, what are they? Blank example education letters of support, so that people can just kind of know what needs to be in it, instead of just saying give us a letter of support, like say address this and this, so you have exactly what you need when you go in there.
Are you saying me?
Whoever, yeah,
okay.
Whoever applies for the grant or is requesting a letter of support, letters of support are usually more accessible when you kind of give someone a dummy,
A
what's
template.
that called? A template.
Yeah, that's it.
Gee.
Did she say dummy?
Moses, tell what the grant is for. What?
The grant is for school safety. The grant, again, and I'll make sure I send John the information, but and the link, so you can actually educate with all due respect, I say this kindly, but educate yourself on what's available with this grant and what it can actually do for our school district. And I will also kindly say, as I said before, it's time for us to stop bashing people and putting them so isolated. We want to send a letter of support to our school district. We want to look at God's grace and forgiveness and say, we're striving to be better. Thank you for pointing out our difference, but you know what? We're striving. We're willing to work with you as a partner to accomplish this because it is above all of us, and we really have to work hard.
And this is a way that groups that might be fighting against each other could find the common ground, because who's going to argue with more safety in schools? And that could be part of the premise of applying for this grant, is saying, look at these are the people that have all had concerns. We haven't necessarily had the same point of view, but we all want to work together on this.
And it's a reconsideration, because I'm telling you, that's where we need to be at this point. Because I think what we did, not we, but I think what happened, they threw the baby out with the bathwater. And so now, everything is reactional. We react. Well, let's get past the reaction and get proactive, because that's what this is all about.
Yeah.
Something happened, boom, we call the police to the school. This happened, boom, we call. But if we can get some things, and it sounds to me like what Moses is talking about is something that has to be put out there. Because Moses, this is the first time we hear about this.
Right. So one of the things that's happening, even like I'll tell this to Melody, is that I've been at several schools. I sneak in, so people don't know I'm there. But I go to the principal's office or the conference room, and then we sit down, and they say, well, we have this kid. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's doing this. He's doing that. And we need your help. So I said, well, let me check out this. Let me check out that. And then let's work together behind the doors to help this kid, because arresting him is absolutely off the table. But he is committing crimes that if we don't intervene to stop it, it's going to continue to evolve at a greater capacity. And now we are dealing with his behavior in the society, and his mother's dealing with his behavior at home. And so therefore, it's about a multidisciplinary approach. And the multidisciplinary approach is not about arresting our babies. It's about helping them, even when you look like me in a uniform, because we're partners.
Yep. Question for you, Moses.
John?
Yes?
I'm sorry. Can I just say something?
Sure.
Can I just piggyback on that? But I want to reiterate this. You're wonderful. And I remember you came to my church a long time ago, New Life Fellowship, when I belonged to that church.
Yes,
and you did a presentation. But we need more of you. And I don't want you to miss that. There's 26,000 kids in the district, and we need to replicate you. We need to train people to do what you do. Maybe not on that level. And I just want to make sure you hear that too.
Exactly, Phyllis. And they don't have to be police officers. They can just be folks that look like our children in our schools that you could possibly put through some type of training. And that is, I think we all know how to talk to our children, but we have to step to their level. And as adults, that's one of the hardest things that we find ourselves, right? Coming down to their level. We always expect the kids to come up to our level, but they are children.
Yes.
So definitely we need more of you.
Yes. And I'm going to tell you, when I started working at Boutet, I was scared of kids.
Right.
But after 8 years of being there and going through the continual training and learning about trauma-informed care, learning how to talk to kids and whatnot, it really makes a difference. And then when you love them, you have a passion too, they know it. And the last thing, my son, my oldest son, was doing some stuff, and he was I tried to get him in the PINS program. And they said, no, he's not bad enough to be in PINS. I went 3 times. I took him 3 times, and they kept turning me away. They finally put him in a program that's been canceled now. But I never will forget, there was a young man that came, and he sat at my dining room table, and he talked to my son. He looked him in the eye. He knew about social media. He knew about what was going on in the streets. He knew about stuff that I didn't know. The 2 of them linked eyes, and they talked, and it turned my son around. He talked to my son about things that I couldn't talk to him about.
Yeah.
So we need more training and more males.
Right.
And I think having a heart and a common interest. And that's I'm not trying to swell your head, Moses, but listen, you got to have a heart, and that's what Moses had. That's what sets them apart. Having a heart. What I do, what you do, we have a heart. That's our self-interest. That's our guts. If you want to get me up 2 o'clock in the morning, call me and say that something is going on with a special needs child, and Reverend Cunningham, can you do X, Y, and Z? I'm there. And it's special interest. What your interest and what's your passion? That's the word I'm looking for. My passion. Moses has a passion.
You know, I just want to say this, and I appreciate you very, Mother Cunningham. I just want to say this, and I mean this from the fullness of my heart. I was one of those kids. I grew up in North Philadelphia and have been exposed to violence in the community, domestic violence. And I was a foster kid. I grew up in foster homes. And so a lot of people, when they see me, they don't know my story. They just see what I do. But they don't realize oftentimes I was that kid. And so when I see that kid on the street, I say, there by the grace of God go I. And so my lens for that is I hope and pray that if it's for such a time as all the pain and things I've gone through in my life, I gladly go through it because that's who I am. And the last thing I want to say is that in working with, Reverend Cunningham, Mother Cunningham, and the rest of you guys, to be honest with you, we know this to be 100% a fact. A relationship is what broke a lot of our kids. A relationship, some significant relationship in their lives failed them. Well, we know this in trauma care, that a good, relevant relationship will heal them. That's the end.
Yeah. Phyllis, the Coalition for Public Education has a meeting this Friday at 4 o'clock.
I'll be there.
I think it would be good to, try to get a few of us there, and I'll try to talk to a few on the phone between now and then. But I'd really like to try to get us all working together and with as much agreement to make sure we can push for the district to take money from whatever source they can here to get the right sort of help for our kids in the schools, and get a lot of people working together, because all the groups that I'm working with, whether they always agree with one another or not, they're nice people, and I see them as people who are trying to do good. And
John, are you going to bring up this grant to Coalition?
Yeah, I'll if you send me what you've got, and I'll
Well, when Moses sends you the link, then that link should be forwarded to Dan.
Yep.
Dermasic.
Yep. And
Oh, Eleanor.
And some of the
Hi.
It's been a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So, was it a worthwhile conversation, folks?
Oh, hell yeah.
Reverend Cunningham, I did put a link to the DASA information at the top of the chat, but I can email it to you if you didn't get it.
I also put it in the minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Eleanor.
We still gotta talk, Melody.
We can do that.
Okay. See you on Sunday.
See you Sunday.
Well,
Yes.
yeah, I'll be in Georgia, but we'll talk.
Oh yeah, have a safe trip.
Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you all
folks.
very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Moses.
Thank you
Peace.
very much.
Thank you very much. We'll be talking soon. I sent my email in the chat.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Miss.
Take care, folks.